Hey guys, Loco here. For you today, I have C9's 2020 roster. Let's go. Once again, C9's offseason was crazy as usual. They started out by selling 4 players to Evil Genius, Spenskeren, Deathly, Zeyzal, and Kumo, and they also parted with Sneaky. For the first time in history, there will be another full-time starting AD carry in C9. Sneaky's been the AD carry for that team since Season 3, so it's been 6 years. There's been like brief moment where Keith was starting over Sneaky due to the whole bench apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, but yeah, like there hasn't been another full-time starting AD carry for C9, so exciting news. Now, going into 2020, C9 had 2 really big questions to answer. Is it going to be Blabber or Spenskeren? And is Sneaky staying? For both, I think the answers were pretty obvious, but let's walk through them and kind of how they arrived at that decision, or how we knew they were going to arrive at that decision. So for the Blabber versus Spenskeren, it's really good to have 2 LCS level junglers. It's a problem that every single team wants to have. But yeah, they had to make a choice on it, and C9's had a pattern with not wanting to give players a second contract, because when you give a player a second contract after their first, especially when you're a team like C9, which gets players when they are in low value mode, and you show to the world how good they are, the second contract is going to cost a lot. Yes, Spenskeren had 1 year left in his contract, but after that year, it's going to be a big payday, and Jack probably wasn't up for that big payday. And also the world's benching. With Blabber playing some world games and Spenskeren winning MVP in summer, it made no sense. Then yeah, it's gonna be Blabber in 2020. As for Sneaky, C9 has always been about let's get rid of a player a year early, not a year late. So I was kind of surprised to see them hold on to Sneaky for such a long time. And I think it meant Sneaky's probably a soft spot for Jack. Like Sneaky always talks about Jack as his dad, and I'm sure Jack kind of feels similarly with Sneaky. No, Jack doesn't think Sneaky's his daddy. Jack probably thinks of Sneaky somewhat as his son, so they probably had a soft spot for each other. And one thing that was really big for me was after the whole world disaster from C9, them not making out of groups, it seemed like the teammates were kind of mentally checked out, and it was proven true later on when Sneaky talked about other people on the team not wanting to play with him. Normally, when a player underperforms and the community shits on them, it's a teammate defending them.
Yeah, basically I feel like Jensen and Impact get a huge proportion of the blame, but I fucking hate that, and I feel like it's really destructive for a team. And I'm not saying this out of some sort of moral obligation, but like when I was on TSM, I wish my teammates stood up for me.
But in C9's case, Sneaky had to do kind of self-defense duty, so that really showed that, yeah, the teammates were kind of checked out. So going into 2020, the roster will be Licorice up in top lane, Blabber in the jungle, Niski for mid lane, Zven for AD carry, and Vulcan support. On paper, definitely not the strongest roster, but like always, C9 gets more out of their players than any other team in the league, so let's keep that in mind as we go over it piece by piece. First up, we have Licorice, one of the best homegrown talent LCS has ever produced. Wide champion pool, strong mechanics, confidence on stage, great attitude from talking to the C9 coaches. What more could you want? Although, last year was not all sunshines and rainbow for this golden boy, his shaky performances combined with his wrist injury had Licorice's sophomore year leaving a lot more to be desired. Let's hope 2020 does look better. Now, moving on to jungle, we have Blabber, another player proving once again C9 is the best in the league when it comes to developing talent. The 2018 Scouting Grounds player turned into one of the most hyped up prospects coming into 2020. The way Blabber plays, this guy exudes confidence. He's going for ganks not a lot of people would, and he has the skills to make it work. It really reminds me of Dardoch in terms of the risks that he's taking and how good he is about making those risks turn into something fruitful. Like he's fearless, has zero hesitation when it comes to pulling the trigger.
The base turret will be definitely much harder to take. Funneling onto the stairs, he steps out.
Oh, Blabber went in.
Blabber a little too far forward. He has his flash to get out if it's going to be crazy after Lamb's respite. In goes Zeyzal. The fight on the other side of the map. Licorice and Darshan going head-to-head as Rainover. Not feeling good about this one. There goes Darshan. Rainover's on the stopwatch as Biofrost cannot help. They've already dropped Huhi, and Cloud9 pulled the trigger when CLG don't even think it could happen.
In terms of like the offensive side of jungling, the risks-taking side, the snowballing side, like this guy has everything in space. The downside comes is he does have a tendency to be over-aggressive. While he does look good when he played, he hasn't had a full split yet. And especially for a player like Blabber, who's making his impact by outplaying and catching his opponents off guard, a full split of play is really needed to get a good grasp on who he's going to be as a player. Now, let's move on to Niski. Niski's been a really weird player to judge. His time in NA initially on Envious made him look like a pretty good supporting player. Then he went back to Europe and he actually developed a lot as a carry player. You can remember him for his standout Cassiopeia performances. Now, he came back to NA in 2019 and he's had a pretty mediocre spring. He was not the best laner, but he pulled his weight in teamfights. His level of play versus Bjergsen was the core reason why C9 got reverse swept in spring playoffs in the semifinals. So yeah, his initial split back into LCS wasn't the greatest. Then we had the summer though. He had a spectacular split, especially on melee champions like Yasuo, Irelia, Kiana, Sylas. While Niski played really well on these champions, I'm gonna need to give some of the credit to Svenskeren because all these melee champions like Yasuo, Irelia, Kiana, Sylas that are really well for jungle, and Niski and Svenskeren were some of the best 2v2 in the league. Yeah, so there has to be some of that credit going to Svenskeren, right? He was the MVP. Once again, another C9 player who is going to have to prove his true worth in 2020. Now for bot lane, we have Zven. He was terrible on TSM, he crumbled under the pressure, he's leaving with a lot of baggage. Why the fuck is C9 picking up TSM's garbage? There's no way C9's gonna pick up a Danish player from TSM who crumbled under the pressure and does well on C9 and goes to have an MVP level split. There's just no way at all this happens. Wait a minute. Svenskeren did that. Oh, yeah. Jokes aside, Zven is good, and TSM environment is a lot of pressure. That's speaking from someone that's been there before. That culture still has not changed. And C9, on the other hand, is a great environment. It's an environment that's very welcoming and that has a lot less pressure than TSM and a lot more trust within the players. So Zven has a lot to prove, and I'm afraid it's actually going to go really well. This guy struggles so much on TSM, and he has to be humbled. He has to want to prove himself, and yeah, this isn't a bad player that went to TSM off of some bullshit reason, kind of like Mike Young. This is an amazing player. He had so much success in Europe that just kind of could not handle the environment TSM was, so he's probably going to flourish on C9. Oh my god. Now, moving on to the support, we have Vulcan. The great engager, great mindset. He survived the clutch gaming catastrophe that was their spring split. All the good things about him is kind of being overshadowed by the 1.5 million buyout. So I'm going to talk about why that 1.5 million buyout happened, and while it is outrageous, it's not that outrageous if you look at the context of it. Everything that 1.5 million buyout is showing is how hard it is to develop a North American player in NA, and the law of supply and demand, and why this kind of buyout happens in North America and doesn't really in Europe. So both LCS and LEC need 50 starting players. LCS doesn't have enough starting level North American players, and the few starting level North American LCS players become very, very valuable, like Doublelift, Bjergsen, you name it. And if you have one, you can charge a lot. So while in LEC, there's a lot of starting level EU players, so the salary and the buyouts will never reach this kind of crazy. In NA, we're in a talent drought, and if you have an LCS level player, just charge up the ass. So that's kind of why that buyout happened. Now, let's talk about what to expect for C9 in 2020. I think there's actually a lot of uncertainties. Is Licorice going to continue his success from 2018, or is 2019 the beginning of his decline? How is Blabber going to be as a full-time starter? Is he going to continue on his trajectory? Or really go to show that he's going to be another case of contracts that was propped up by laners in Cloud9? What is Niski's true worth without Svenskeren? What happens if the meta goes more to control mages and it's not all about Zoe and these melee champions? Does TSM really stand for talent suppression machine? Is Sven going to pull off a Svenskeren and have a return to Formir on C9? A lot of questions. We should be worried. This is a lot of things to get right. But Reaper and Jack has consistently proven year after year they see something and know something that the rest of us doesn't. We talk about C9 losing the offseason all the time. We talk about them being overrated, like this is the year where it all goes to hell, and it never fucking happens. This C9 roster will do better than it does on paper. If the roster clicks, it's a very well balanced roster with no clear links. Yeah, C9, I'm pretty sure you're going to make another deep run. The real question comes down to is, are you going to be better than Team Liquid and win a championship finally? Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know where you disagreed, or if you have your own interesting opinions, I will reply back to you. And remember, I'm not crazy, I'm just loco. Bye!